Senator Tillis of North Carolina is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you all for being here. I've been watching the hearing when I've had the opportunity to in my office, and Senator Fetterman asked a question of all three of you, and he had to do with what the root cause was of the bank failure. Ms. Daylin, did I pronounce that right?
Yes, Senator.
You said it was management. I agree. Mr. Quadman, you said it was management and supervision. I agree. Ms. Schooner, you said management. Why did the two of you not mention any skepticism around the level of supervision and that being a potential root cause? And the chief risk officer is an obvious one. I agree. That was a miss of management. I think the CEO not understanding its liquidity threats and its internal liquidity stress testing results that he had to have some indication of before he dumped stock. And this is also something who was a Class A director on the board of directors who lost his job the day that the failure was identified. Why wouldn't the fact that 3 matters requiring attention and 3 matters requiring immediate attention, what we don't know yet, and we hope to find out in the report, is whether or not any of those MRAs become MRIs. Why didn't management act on that, and why didn't the supervisory function press the accelerator on getting a response and resolution to that? It just seems to me on its face, and I could get into more details, but it just seems to me on its face, anybody that's looking at this to not stipulate that it was both a breakdown in executive management and every single dime that we can claw back from anybody in the C-suite, we should, and I do believe that there are devices to do that now that we should act on. But why wouldn't that be a part of your observation of some of the factors that likely led to it? Not to mention the overall portfolio. If you take a look at Silicon Valley Bank, we have other banks that are now getting caught up by its depositors thinking, well, maybe they were like Silicon Valley Bank. There are only a handful of banks that have the kind of risk portfolio that SVB had. So, Ms. Daylin, why wouldn't you have mentioned supervision as a part of the root causes behind a supervision lapse as one of the potential root causes? I have the same question for you, Ms. Schooner.
Thank you, Senator. I do think that we found out 2 important causes of the recent bank failures from the reports that were released last week. First, senior leadership was pursued or incentivized to pursue short-term growth.
Yeah. I'm talking more about the supervisory question.
But yes, also we learned that regulators missed obvious problems and they were slow to address the problems they did recognize and manage. And they were.
So I don't want to interrupt you, but I don't want to be the last person. Oh, well, Senator Warren's here, so I won't be the last person. So it was not that you don't think that there's clearly some questions to be answered there in response to Senator Fetterman's question. You just didn't go down that path in your response. You said it was a failure of management. But you also understand there are questions that have to be asked on the supervisory function?
Yes, Senator. The reports.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I hate the 5-minute limit, but it's there for a reason. Ms. Schooner?
I answered Senator Fetterman's question because I interpreted it as asking me what the primary cause of the failure was, and I see it as a management failure. I agree with you that regulatory forbearance is a persistent problem in our system, but I also think that it's very important to keep in mind a finding about Silicon Valley Bank, which was, I found alarming, that the management was relying on bank regulators to help them manage their interest rate risk, and that is backwards.
I agree. I think there's one more layer to the supervisory discussion where I know I disagree with some of my colleagues who didn't support Senate Bill 2155. But we did not stipulate that regulatory, there are escalation options because we said that they may be able to take a given bank based on its activities and the risks that a supervisor perceives and subject them to a regulatory regimen that we don't think is necessary for other banks with very different portfolios. So I also want to know why the supervisor chose not to do that, particularly if that supervisor had 6 outstanding MRAs or MRIAs. That, to me, leads me to believe that we may find out if we have an objective assessment, if there was equal weight in that. CEOs were incompetent. You need to claw back as much of their compensation as possible. Maybe the supervisory function of the Fed in San Francisco could have equal weight, and why that failed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thanks, Senator Tillis. Senator Warren from Massachusetts is recognized.